So we picked this theme because we thought it was really great for summertime. Kids might be home with you a lot more during the summer because they're not in school, or potentially you've got something fun planned, a vacation, or maybe even a staycation where you are spending money in a different way than normal. And it's a great opportunity to teach your kids about money and spending and saving and all of that. So we'll go to the next slide there. So, why do you want to talk to your kids about money? So, it's never too early to start talking about money. Your kids are watching what you're doing, even if you don't notice that they're watching what you're doing. And so, if we can show them really great money habits, they will pick that up. But also, if we can talk to them about why we're making certain money choices, it will help them build good financial skills for themselves going forward in their life. And if there's something we talk about where we say it's something a kid should learn when they're in the like middle aged childhood and they're a teenager and they haven't learned it yet, it doesn't mean all hope is lost. You would just want to backtrack and teach them that skill that they may have missed so that they can build that skill and practice it as they're a teen and then they get older. So there are three building blocks for our money skills that we're going to look at today. And these were created by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which is called the CFPB. It is like a government agency that is designed to help educate people about money. And also, they do a lot of things like helping protect consumers. But they've done a lot of really great research, and they have come up with these three building blocks that our money skills are based on. The first is executive function. So these are our thinking skills and abilities that are needed to plan ahead, maybe focus our attention, help us juggle tasks, or practice self control. And people need these skills to do things like set a goal for themselves, take action to actually choose to buy or save money, and then actually the ability to make and follow a budget. So that's number one. Number two are our financial habits and values. So these are the values or practices and rules that we use in our personal lives to navigate our day to day financial life. And they help you decide, based on what your values are, how you're going to spend your money. And that could be deciding to splurge on a treat, or because you value saving, you might value saving for something larger. And then third are our financial decision making skills. So these are the knowledge and skills that are needed to understand the financial world and make an informed decision. So these skills are going to help people weigh two different options. Again, maybe deciding when to save money versus when to spend money, but also comparing costs between big purchases or planning for something long term like your retirement. And these are interconnected blocks. You need bits of all to like influence the other ones. And kids and teens start forming this in their childhood. It starts really young, and then those skills will build as they continue to mature and get older. So, an example of executive function, like a non financial example of this, is you learn not to run into the road when your ball has rolled out of your yard. You know that there is danger in the street, and your brain has learned to not run and go and do something. And then the financial example of this, you learn to delay gratification and maybe not impulse buy when you're out shopping for something that you want. Our financial habits, an example of this is if you start early with your kids when they have an allowance and you say X percentage of your money you're going to save, when they do that repeatedly, that shows them that there is value in saving, and it helps build a habit that they know to put a certain amount of money aside every time so that when they get to be an adult and they need to be saving for things like an emergency fund or they want to save for a vacation, they have built that habit for themselves that saving money is a good thing to do and they know how to do that. And then our decision making, we're weighing our different options. You might be deciding between going to different types of colleges or how to pay for that. Or you might know the math behind how to calculate how interest compounds in a savings account, but then you're taking that next step as an adult and saying, I know how the math works, and I'm actually going to make sure I'm putting money into my savings account to get the best use out of it. So we're going to look a little closer at each of these things, what they look like by age. So our executive function skills by age, and you'll see this chart on the next three slides. It's broken into columns for early childhood, which, we're starting in ages 3 to 5. That's really young to start teaching kids some of these skills. So early childhood, ages 3 to 5, Our middle childhood is 6 to 12, and then our adolescents and young adults, so ages 13 and up. And you'll see on each of the slides, there's what does this look like as a youth, and then how does that translate into a skill as an adult. So if you're working with your kids to build executive function skills, when they're young, ages 3 to 5, they're learning how to stay focused and complete tasks. And obviously, like that will build as they get older. And once they get to adulthood, that staying focused and being able to complete a task looks like being able to follow a budget or sticking to your shopping list when you're going grocery shopping. When you're in your middle childhood, that executive function skill, you're beginning to think about how your current actions are going to impact future results. So that cause and effect piece. And what that looks like once you have matured and become an adult is you know that putting money in the bank account is going to earn interest and increase your future savings, which is hopefully something that they value by the time they get to be an adult. And then as an adolescent, they're starting to demonstrate more critical thinking skills. They're learning in school how to research and analyze pieces of information. And so maybe they're learning in science class what that means to research and analyze. But that skill also translates to the financial world that they can then research and compare cost on a big purchase, which could be anything from a television to a car, big purchase, or even a home, or they know how to find credible financial information. They can evaluate, is this website a trustworthy website or does it seem like a scam? All right, so those are our executive function skills and how they're going to grow throughout our age. And then our financial habits and values. So people typically begin to build these financial habits and norms and values in the middle childhood period through a process that is called financial socialization. So they're seeing things happening in the world around them, starting to realize why something should be important, and they're starting to like internalize that a little bit more. And they obviously are going to develop as they're in older adolescence and into childhood. This is a great time, this middle childhood, where they're starting to form their own independent identities. They're observing how family members interact with money, but also how their peers are interacting with money. And so it can be really great if you have set a foundation in your family of what it means to interact with money, because if their peers are doing something different, you maybe don't want them influenced by that peer pressure. So, as an early childhood, what does this look like? They may begin to develop a basic value and attitude around keeping something or using something. And this doesn't have to be money. It could be, am I going to keep all the blocks for myself or share it with people? Or my parent gave me some cookies. Am I going to eat all of them before I go to play? Or am I going to save a few for when I'm done playing because I want to come back to that later? And that obviously, like, it's not money, but they start to build these skills for themselves on if I'm going to keep or use something right away. And what that looks like as an adult is, are we going to spend all of our money the moment we get it, or are we going to value saving some of it for later? So, and that middle childhood piece that is really critical, they start to feel confident about completing age appropriate financial tasks. So, we're not asking them to like invest in the stock market, we're looking at age appropriate tasks. If they're getting an allowance, are they depositing some of that money in a savings account, or are they spending it all when they go shopping? And then as an adult, what those habits and values look like. If they're used to, saving some of their allowance in a savings account when they're an adult, they'll also have that habit built of knowing how to save money. They will be building habits on knowing how to pay bills on time so things aren't, getting them late fees or something. They will understand options between saving and investing, and they will trust themselves to make good financial decisions. And then as this grows in adolescents and young adults, they're learning how to make spending and saving decisions again that match their personal goals and values. And, it's hard to be a teen these days. So learning to resist peer pressure that goes against what financial values they have for their life. And then what that looks like as an adult, again, they're going to measure their financial success by their own standards, not about what others are doing. So this is like not keeping up with the Joneses next door because they've decided something else is more valuable to them, and they will spend within what those values are for themselves. And then our last piece is that financial decision making. And again, it is never too early or too late to start with your kids. If you've got kiddos that are in this 3 to 5 age range, you've got a lot of time to help them build these financial decision making skills. But if your kids are teens already, it's better to start here than not start at all. So please don't feel like you've lost the chance to build this with your kids. As a youth, and that 3 to 5 age range, they're gonna learn some early math skills like counting and sorting. And that maybe doesn't seem like it's gonna play into this, but that basic ability to count and sort different things, can they calculate change then when they're an adult? If they go or can do the sorting as a kid, and obviously that builds over time, when they're an adult, they're able to sort their spending into different categories so they know where something fits in their budget, or they can track their cash flow to make sure that they've got enough money by the end of the month. In our middle childhood age range, they're starting to successfully manage their own money, especially if they're getting any type of allowance, or it's managing other resources that they have to reach a personal goal for themselves. And then as an adult, that's going to look like we're spending to meet our needs, not always spending to reach the things that we want. We're covering our needs first. We can follow that budget, and we're able to then save for bigger things that we want, like a vacation, maybe. In our adolescence, we're solidifying our financial knowledge and decision-making skills. These are gonna become a little bit more relevant in their everyday life. They may be if they're shopping a lot, it's gonna be a lot more decision making, or if they've got a job and they're earning money, they've got a lot more money to sort of I was about to say play with. They shouldn't play with their money, but they've got a lot more resources at their disposal at that point that they need to be making, better financial decisions. And then they're understanding bit more of those advanced financial concepts and processes. So, how a decision will impact them in the future, or they're making decisions in high school, like taking out student loans that are going to impact their time in college and beyond. And then what that looks like as they continue to mature into adulthood is maybe they're understanding risks and benefits of investing. We're not, teaching 4 year olds the stock market, but as an adult, that's something that we have more choice to do. And we have to make those decisions. Are we going to invest our money or not? And how do we invest that money? How do we use credit wisely? If we have debt, how are we going to manage that debt so it's not a burden anymore for our lives? So that is the sort of groundwork of the things that your kids are learning, whatever age they're at, that will influence a lot of what we're going to talk about next. So, there are 5 areas that we're going to look at next that include earning, saving money, planning for our money, and then going shopping, which is always the fun time, but also borrowing money from people or institutions. So, Annie, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So the first thing we're going to talk about is earning. And one way to do this with your kids is to talk about how money has to be earned and then ways that they can earn money as a youth. So things like money that they've received as a gift, money they've earned from a job or an allowance, something like a lemonade stand or a garage sale, or even selling a service like mowing lawns or shoveling snow or babysitting. And then you can also discuss the ways that adults earn money, what kinds of jobs adults can have, and you can use that to talk to your kids about what they might want to be as they grow up. And of course, we know that that answer will probably change, but you can start having that conversation when they're very young. So, some activities to reinforce earning include a chore chart. So, asking your child to choose something that they want, like a toy or an outing or even a privilege, and then giving your child jobs to do around the house and assign points for them, and sharing how many points it will take to earn the reward. So, then you can create a chart to track the number of points earned. And this is easy because it doesn't rely on actual money. If your funds are limited, you can make that reward an outing or a special snack or, picking a movie for family movie night. So if your funds are limited, you can still show that their work earns them a reward. And we can also explore interests. So, having your child write a list of personal interests and encourage them to explore the interests on their own or together as a family. An example is something like if your child has an interest in cooking, ask them to help you cook a meal, and then you can discuss how their interests may relate to different jobs, like being a server or a chef or a baker. And you can also give your child an allowance for different tasks like good grades or completing chores, and discuss ways that they can save or spend the money that they earn. And youth of all ages can benefit from an allowance in different ways, including learning how to count money, how coins and bills relate to one another, and saving some money for a larger item they want. And then, of course, our older kids might be saving for things like college. So, giving that allowance is a great way to start reinforcing those earning habits. And next up, we have saving. We can talk about how once you earn money, you can either save it or spend it. So, one thing we want to talk about is why there are certain things in life that we have to spend money on. So, things like housing, food, and bills, we have to help them start to understand that they can't spend every dollar that they earn on fun things. We all wish that were true. We can also talk about why it's important to save. Saving money allows you to save up for something you really want, and it allows you to be prepared to pay for emergencies. And if you spent every dollar you earned as soon as you got it, you'd never be able to save up for something even bigger and cooler. And we also want to discuss the importance of having money values. What is important to buy? What can we do without or have a cheaper version of? And once we know what our money values are, how do we stick to them? Having money values and knowing what they are helps kids to feel more confident about their money decisions and creates a really strong foundation to build that future spending and saving habits. And so, some activities to reinforce saving: read with younger children. There's a book called Alexander Who Used to Be Rich Last Sunday, and it is a book about a kid who really wants to save but really struggles to do so and ends up wasting and spending a lot of money along the way. And you can talk about the ways Alexander failed to save his money and how he could have done better. Another thing to point out is this book is available through libraries, which also helps you to save. And you can use this book to help your kids start being able to count coins. You can get a dollar in pennies and have your kids help count out all the money Alexander spends along the way that leads to him eventually losing his $1. You can also decorate a savings jar or a piggy bank. Have your child decorate a piggy bank of their own that they can use to save money, and talk with them about what they want to save for and how much it might cost. And by making it their own, by letting them decorate it however they want or pick out a piggy bank, it'll help them feel more ownership over the money that they have and the decisions they're making with it. And finally, having an allowance with a budget. So if you're providing your child with an allowance, help them to create a budget to decide how they plan on spending and saving their money. And if they're a little older and have a job, sit down and help them create a budget for the earnings from that job as well. Our next topic is planning. One way to do this is to practice making shopping lists before you go to a store or on a shopping trip, and talk about how easy or hard it is to stick to the list once you're there shopping. We can also work on setting SMART goals. So, asking your child to set a goal for something they want and to talk about the steps it would take to get it. Over time, check in with them and see how they're doing with their goal and adjust it if they need to. And just a reminder that SMART goals, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So, specific, you want it to be something that, instead of saying something like, I want to improve my money skills, specific would be something like, I want to save $100 for this thing that I want. Measurable, achievable. So, if your 8-year-old says, I want to save $20,000 for a down payment on a house in the next 6 months, that's not going to be achievable for them to do. Relevant, something that's relevant to their interests. And time bound. So, giving yourself a timeline, or deadline seems like too harsh of a word, but making sure that it is bound in some time so that you can go back and check on the progress of the goal. And then also sharing your own tips and strategies for how you make plans, and get yourself to stick to them, and share your successes with planning around spending and saving. And make sure that you are always reinforcing with your children that before you spend, have a plan in mind. So, some activities to reinforce planning: having a shopping list. Make sure that they are kind of with you throughout the whole process of getting ready to go shopping and making that shopping list. they go along with you and reinforce why it's important to stick to the shopping list. And you can also consider comparing your shopping list with grocery store ads to compare prices before shopping and plan what you'll buy at the various stores. You can also create a budget. Again, discuss what a budget is and help them to make a budget, or show them how your family budget works if you have one that you're using. You can also consider creating a budget for a summer activity they're interested in. So, for example, if they want to go to Kennywood and they have $75, you can talk about how they would budget that between the price to get into Kennywood, any food that they would need while we're there, if they want to play games. So, helping them create that budget beforehand. And then again, setting those goals. So, have your child set a SMART goal for something they want or an activity that they want to participate in, and asking them to make a plan for how they'll achieve that goal, and then check in with them regularly and adjust the plan if needed. Next up, we have shopping. We want to make sure we're talking with kids about needs versus want. Do they actually need something, or do they just really want it? And this is also a good place to introduce the concepts of peer pressure and trying to fit in, and discussing that advertising is designed to make you want to spend more money. So, discussing smart ways to not be taken in by advertising and to not be influenced by it, and instead to align their shopping with their financial values. You can just discuss bargaining and scams. So, for example, sales and coupons are great and you should keep an eye out for them. But sometimes, if a deal seems too good to be true, it could be a scam. And you also want to discuss comparison shopping and impulse buying. So, comparison shopping, explaining that something might be at a different price at two different stores or even in person versus online. And we can do a little shopping around before we make our decision to make sure that we are making the best financial decision for ourselves. And then also discussing impulse buying and how small purchases can add up very fast. For example, if they get a candy bar every week at the checkout line when you go grocery shopping, and that candy bar costs $1.50, explain to them that after a whole year, they've spent $78 on candy bars. And what else could they do with that $78 if they had saved it instead? You also want to begin to introduce the idea of sales tax and that items cost more than the listed price. Explaining that if they see something for $1, it's actually going to cost $1.06, so that whenever they're making their budget, they can understand and account for that. And then also share your family's shopping habits and priorities. What does your family spend money on and why? And some activities to reinforce comparison shopping. Look at ads and find an item that is at a different price at two or more stores, and show it to your child and explain that stores run ads at different times. And it's always smart to look at the prices at different stores to find the cheapest option and save money in the long run. You can also discuss coupons and discount cards. Have your child help you find and cut out the coupons for things you buy at the grocery store, or select them in the store app, and then shop for those items. And discuss how some stores offer discount cards and shopping without it means a higher price. You can also, when you go to the store, have your child find the items that you have coupons for and make sure that it matches the coupon. And then at the end, show your child how they're show them the receipt so they can see how the coupon worked and what the discount was. And then exploring sales tax and advertising. There are some great resources that you will receive whenever you'll get the links whenever you receive the slides that include Consumer Financial Protection Bureau resources to learn about sales tax. And then there's also Century Heritage Federal Credit Union, which is one of our partners. They have an ad expert curricula to learn about how advertising influences people. And then we have borrowing. So we want to make sure we're discussing the pros and cons of saving versus borrowing. A savings and spending plan or a budget can help you avoid credit card debt. Also, explaining that credit cards are not free money, but money that you borrow, and that if you don't pay off your credit card bill every month, you will have to pay back more than you borrowed, and kind of explaining that concept of interest. Reinforcing that you should not use a credit card to buy things you can't afford, and reinforcing that you should pay off that bill every month in full to avoid those interest payments. And I do want to plug, if you're hearing this and you're like, I'm not super confident in my knowledge about credit cards, next month our financial literacy topic is Credit Cards 101. So feel free to join us and we'll go over some of those basics. And then you also want to discuss with borrowing, especially with older kids who are thinking about going to college, the pros and cons of student loans, and understanding that they help pay for school, but it's not free money and that they'll have to pay it back. And that students should seek as much scholarship and grant money as they can first, because that is free money that they won't have to pay back. And learning the differences between things like subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, and also thinking about the affordability of where you're attending and the course of study versus your expected earnings for future jobs. So, some activities to reinforce borrowing: visiting the library, find a book or a movie to check out, and then discuss how borrowing the item is like borrowing money or using a credit card and the consequences if returned late. So, if you borrow something from the library, you have it for a set amount of time. And if you keep it longer than that, you might get charged a fine, which is similar to paying interest. Also, a lot of our libraries are fine free now, but still a concept that you can discuss with them. And you can also talk about the money saving aspects of using the library, that instead of buying new books or movies, that you can go to the library and see how much money you're saving over time. There are also some videos that, again, you'll have the links to whenever you receive the slides. There's a video from the St. Louis Federal Reserve about a boy named Daniel who's trying to buy a new bike helmet. And there's also a Credit Union Atlantic video about borrowing money to pay for pizza, which is a very cute video. So you can talk with your children about the benefits of saving versus borrowing, and explain that borrowing can be helpful and unhelpful, but it depends on the situation. And ask your child after watching this second video why borrowing was helpful in the video and how it was unhelpful. And then for loans with teens, you want to start early discussing the cost of college and how student loans can help. We always suggest finding that free money first through scholarships and grants, because you don't have to pay any of that back. And make sure that you're looking at what your teen might want to study, what job they want, how much that might pay, and how much the schooling can cost. And use a student loan calculator to see how much interest they might have to pay on a loan they take out. So, for an example we did with Bank Rates Calculator, on a $20,000 loan with a fixed rate, if that is paid back over 10 years, then with a monthly payment of $222, you're paying interest of $6,650. Whereas if you accelerate it to 5 years, you have a higher monthly payment at $387, but the interest is only coming out to $3,000 instead of that $6,600. And that's just for 1 year of college. So we, of course, don't want to dissuade teens from going to college, but we want them to understand how much it costs to borrow that money and why it is so important to look for scholarship and grant money to reduce those loan amounts. So when they eventually pay it back, it's not too high of an amount for them to manage. And now I will throw it back to Katie for our last slide.
The last slide will have a lot of links that you all can click on for various resources so you can start using them this summer with your kids. So there are a couple resources to help teach them the different coins and dollar bills that we have. We teach the kids in our after school and summer camp at work about finances, and we realized because people swipe cards so often these days, they don't realize there is this underlying system of like dollars and bills that is what money is. So teaching them what that money is so they have that basic understanding of then later what comes behind swiping that card. So they'll learn how to count different coins, what the different values are, how like I was gonna say 2 quarters, 4 quarters add up to $1, things like that. For some kids who are older, well, up to age 10, I mean, the Century Heritage Federal Credit Union that we said is a partner, they have a whole website with different money resources. So there's things for kids to read about understanding needs and wants, different ways you can pay for things like cash or gift cards or credit cards, learning about savings accounts, and then how to be a smart shopper. If your kids are over age 11, there's this thing called Financial Football, which, funny enough, was put together with the NFL. But they'll answer financial questions, and that gets them plays to like move down the football field so that they can win the game. And this is fun because they can actually play against a friend while they're doing it. If your kid has a really good friend that isn't maybe learning this finance stuff in their own home, you can help them play this game and they'll start learning that as well. Gold Rush is another game from one of the government agencies. You'll earn some money along the way and then have to decide how you want to spend it as you grow your own business. The GoHenry website has a lot of financial tips. They've got like really good blog articles that you can read, and it'll teach you some more tips and tricks than what we've shared here so that you can introduce concepts again to your kids and teenagers. If you have older teens or your kids are in college at this point, again, there is still stuff that they can be learning. The Troutwood app, which was actually made local here by some CMU graduates. So this is for older teens and college students. They will learn how to build a financial plan. So it'll let them say how much student loans they currently have, what type of a job are they looking to have, and then it'll give them some projections on like, this is how much you could be making. And if you would be saving and investing, here's how great that could grow so that you have a lot of money when we retire so we can have a nice retirement. Because when you start young with that investing and saving for your future, that's how it compounds and gets you to like $1 million to retire on. So that's a great app that you can use. Their website also has some different resources that you can access as well. So CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they have a ton of stuff. There is a lot on there that even if it says it's for a teacher to use with a classroom, you can take it and use it with your kid instead. You don't have to be teaching a whole classroom of 25 children. There is a thing called the Money as You Grow bookshelf. So there are like publicly available books from the library. Alexander Who Used to Be Rich Last Sunday is one of them. It'll have you read that book with your kid, or a lot of the books, especially during the pandemic, people would read them and record the video for YouTube. So you can just like play the YouTube video for the kid if you don't have access to the book itself. But you'll read or watch the book. And then there is like a parental guide that will help guide you through what are some good questions to ask your child about what did the character do in the story with their money? If they were trying to save, were they successful? If they were spending money, how do you think they did with how they were spending the money? So there's a lot of books on that bookshelf that you can use for that. And then the Money Monsters was actually created by CFPB, and it's this cute group of little monsters that, you know, live on the earth and the different financial scenarios that they find themselves in as well. And again, even if it says an activity is for a classroom, like you can do something with your child just individually, or if you've got 2 or 3 kids, do it all together with them. The St. Louis Federal Reserve and the FDIC both have resources starting in pre-K, so that's our 3 to 5 age range, and then going up to either grade 12 or college, depending which one you pick. And again, they have entire lesson plans that have been created on different topics. So you could do something like every Monday, we're going to work through one of the 6 lessons from the FDIC, or we're going to have just a finance week and do it all in one week. And again, they're created for classrooms, but they're definitely easy to do with smaller groups of kids or just an individual kid. And then if there are any providers on our call today, our agency has access to a financial simulation called Mad City Money. So this is built for high school students. It works, I think, a little bit better with older high school students, but if you've got ninth graders, we can make it work. But basically, they get a little persona and they have to go through a simulation and not go broke. So they'll be told what their job is and how much their monthly income is. And they have a worksheet of they have to make spending decisions. What type of housing do they want? Are they going to buy a car or take the bus? What type of food and like household goods are they going to buy during the month? And you see at the end of it, did they spend all of their money and go broke, or were they able to save any money at the end? And when we've done this simulation with other schools, we've done it with schools, we've done it with some nonprofit partners who like have an after school program. What I always tell them is we'd rather that the students sort of fail in the scenario and go broke because it's not real life and they'll still learn why it's important to save. Like we don't want them to go and be an adult and end up spending all their money and then not being able to pay their bills. So it's a great simulation where they can see it is sometimes hard to make these financial choices between how much you're going to spend on housing because it's going to impact how much food you can buy. So if you're a provider and you would be interested in taking that to students you work with, a school, an after school program, anything like that, when you get the email of these slides, please reply to Annie or myself and we can get you connected with that curriculum because we'd love to get it into your hands if you've got a great group of students who could use it.